Diane. Welcome to Zoom and Czarny. Today is Friday, September 15th. I'm coming to you a little bit late with my weekly interview show because of some technical difficulties, but I'm very glad to have Joseph Zavaglia and Diane Darwish Plumely, who are the candidates for family court for Onondaga County this year. They're getting into the race kind of late because these are late openings, but they are the brand new candidates and probably the final candidates that have come forward this year. So we have a great conversation about how important family court is and all the why they are so qualified for these positions. And I think Onondaga County would do well to have them in family court next year protecting children. So check out my interview. Next week, I'll be in LA for the Partnership for Large Election Jurisdictions, which means no commissioner in a car, although I may be doing a Czarny seminar, if everything goes as planned, on Tuesday morning on registering to vote. But this week, we're finishing up our poll site manager classes and getting ready for the Manlius special election. I did a commissioner in a car this week on the Manlius special election that's going on right now. And then hopefully by the end of next week, we'll be doing sending out the absentees for the general election. So stay tuned for all of that. But right now, enjoy my interview with Joe Zavaglia and Diane Darwish Plumely, Democrats running for family court this fall. Bye-bye. And we're back. And I'm very happy to have my new friends, Judge Joseph Zavaglia and Diane Darwish Plumely. These are the new Democratic candidates for family court. Family court positions kind of opened up late here in this cycle as two family court judges retired in July, and we didn't make that official until July, so we couldn't go through the normal process of picking candidates. So the Onondaga County Democratic Committee, as required by election law, chose two nominees to run for these seats, and they've really been kind of thrown into this race here, in August, and that's why I was very happy that they were able to come on Zoom and Czarny, because I think these are countywide races, very important race. Family court is very important, and these are great candidates. So, Joe, Diane, thank you so much for coming on Zoom and Czarny.
Thank you, Commissioner.
So, I think because people don't know who you are, you're both first-time candidates, although at least for the countywide level, although Judge Zavaglia, you're a judge as well. But I guess what we want to know is, who are you? And we'll start with you, Joe. Who's Joseph Zavaglia?
Okay. I'll tell you a little bit about me. So I am a first-generation Italian-American. I'm one of 6 kids. I grew up in the suburbs, a more rural area. Actually, we grew up on kind of farmland, both of my parents are from Italy. I was the first in my family. I'm the middle child, but I was the first in my family to go to college, to graduate from college, to go to graduate school, graduate from graduate school, and I grew up kind of helping my father because his first language was Italian. I grew up translating documents for him, translating legal documents, and that's where my love for the law began, helping my father. He had his own business, and I worked with him on the weekends. And that's kind of where the love for the law started. I graduated from East Syracuse Manoa High School, went to Onondaga Community College, and graduated from SUNY Binghamton. Then went to law school at New England School of Law and came back here. My first job was in family court. My first job was in the county attorney's office in the family court division. I was handling neglect, abuse cases, termination of parental rights cases, and I did that for a number of years. And then I left that office and decided to go into the private sector and eventually open up my own law practice and represented indigent uh, individuals in family court matters and children in family court. I continued with that practice to this day. I've been practicing for more than 20 years and still enjoy helping families, still enjoy doing what I do to get people through the family court system, but get people through in such a way that they are able to come out on the other side benefiting from that experience and overcoming the problems that might have gotten them there in the first place. That's really important to me. At this juncture, I'm now a judge. I'm a village court judge. I've been a village court judge for 9 years. And
which village? Which village?
Village of East Syracuse. Actually,
okay.
In October, it'll be 9 years. It's almost 9 years. And as part of that, I am a youth part accessible magistrate. What that means is in the middle of the night, if there is an emergency, I could be called and I could arraign juveniles on pre-petition applications for detention. I can also arraign adults on warrants, and I can issue family court orders of protection on an emergency basis when court is not in session. So I've had some experience acting as a family court judge off hours based upon those situations where people are in an emergency situation and they need access to family court and the family court judges aren't available. So that's been a very positive experience for me in terms of having those experiences and helping those individuals. And it brings me to where we're at now.
So we're going to get into that in a little bit, but I want to flip over to our second candidate, yes. Diane Darwish. These are two Diane Darwish Plumely. These are two spots that are open, and you're running together. So Diane, same question to you. Who's Diane Darwish Plumely?
Thank you, Dustin. So I'm actually not from New York. I am what I keep hearing termed as a transplant. I'm actually from the state of Illinois. And depending on what period of my life we're talking about, I would identify myself differently. So if we're talking about my years when I was growing up, I would identify myself as a flutist, very serious musician. Not only did I study the flute very intensely, I also played the saxophone as well as a bit of the piano, but don't ever ask me to play that today. I am a sibling. I have a brother. I have a sister. Of course, I'm a daughter. My family still is in the Midwest. My mother's there. My sister lives in the city of Chicago. My brother is in Overland Park, Kansas. And I did my undergraduate work at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. And I had my first job in Chicago, Illinois, in the big city. And there I worked for a small tech startup firm. And among other roles that I had for that firm, I was essentially the face of the firm and the liaison to folks that we worked with. And one of those folks was an attorney. And so I spoke with her regularly. And I started to learn about what she does. And I said to her, Mary, I want to do what you do. What do I have to do what you do? And she said, well, you need to go to law school. And my search for the law school that fit me led me here to upstate New York, or central New York, actually, to Syracuse University, where I earned not only my Juris Doctor, but also a Master's of Science in Telecommunications and Network Management. And getting to know the area, making a lot of new friends here, having received an exceptional education here and having landed an excellent job, in my opinion, right out of law school, I stayed here. So not only have I completed my education out here, I chose to live here. And currently, my husband and I live in Lafayette, New York, on what we refer to as a small hobby farm. So depending on the year and depending on the season, we enjoy all the benefits of living in the countryside of our beautiful central New York. We raise honeybees, we raise chickens from the honeybees when we had them. We don't have them right now, but we did for several years. We would produce honey. We would make our own wax candles. We continue to develop our property. We have substantial vegetable gardens, flower gardens. We just created our first Christmas tree farm. We created Helen's rhododendron garden. We created our hosta park. So even though my husband and I have very busy professional and personal lives, we do enjoy our time here working the land. So Joe got a bit into his qualifications. I'm not sure, do you want me to do that now or? Okay, we can segue into that. So in terms of my qualifications for the position of Onondaga County Family Court Judge, I've been practicing family law in family court since 2005. And in 2008, I had the opportunity to make my practice exclusively on the areas of family law and domestic relations law. And I, in fact, turned my private practice into a boutique firm focusing on those areas. Since that time, I've had the privilege of representing parents, non-parent caregivers, including grandparents and family members, and children as a fourth department attorney for child in my private law practice through the processes of litigation and collaboration in court and outside of court, respectively. I've had the exceptional opportunity to litigate to trial or to be part of active litigation in every type of family court matter that I can think of, from UCCJEA work to writ of habeas corpus, to paternity and collateral estoppel, to child support modifications and violations, to neglect and abuse cases, including removals, permanency planning hearings, terminations of parental rights, voluntary surrenders, to contested adoptions, to custody and visitation, to spousal support, to name changes, which is technically in Supreme Court, but often comes out part and parcel of family court proceedings, to family offenses. I've litigated juvenile delinquency matters and represented youth and persons in need of supervision matters. I've also represented many divorced clients and children in matrimonial part in Supreme Court, which I believe is relevant because often matrimonial work and family court work either overlap or intersect or both. My practice has truly been boots on the ground, and I couldn't be more grateful. In addition to maintaining a robust retained client base, I've had the privilege of ensuring that a large part of my practice has involved representation of assigned counsel and attorney for child clients. As such, I've had the honor of playing a key role in making our family-related laws and our judicial system accessible and meaningful to a spectrum of underprivileged individuals, from infants to grandparents, from the poor and the homeless to the disabled, to non-English speakers, to folks of various races and religious backgrounds, to non-citizens. Certainly, a broad and diverse litigation background gives a sitting judge a real-world, connected perspective of those they serve, those who appear before them. However, we must remain mindful that being a judge is by definition a position of neutrality, of fairness, of impartiality. As unintentional preparation for a hopeful transition into a judicial seat, I've been trained in alternative dispute resolution through my participation in the Central New York Collaborative Professionals Practice Group since 2008. Collaboration is a voluntary dispute resolution process in which parties settle their differences outside the courtroom in a team-based setting where the professionals at the table look to the future of the entire family during information gathering and decision-making.
Yeah, both of you are obviously very qualified for the family court position, and you obviously have a very a big passion for this position. But I think the people that are out there in the county, they don't really know what family court does. I think that they hear it, they assume it, what it is, but I think it would be helpful to hear what you believe is so important about family court and why you decided to run for this office besides your qualifications, but what brought you to run for it. So we'll start with you, Diane, and then go to you, Joe.
Sure. Thank you, Dustin. So running for family court judge for me has been a natural progression. That's the best way I can describe it. I can have a broader impact on families by calling on my breadth of experience focused on family law and domestic relations law, not only meritoriously, but also from a process perspective. In other words, not only from a background of litigation, but also from many years of training myself in alternative dispute resolution to take my litigation hat, my hat of advocacy off, and to wear a hat of neutrality. I can do much better and I can do differently than I can representing the interests of simply a single individual as a family court judge. Additionally, while family court is not really talked about, I would say, among the general public. And I think that's because family court matters are inherently private. They're very personal. Sometimes they're messy. And sometimes I think a lot of people can make personal judgments regarding folks who are going through family court matters. I don't know of any litigant, any child that I've ever dealt with in the intimately, professional way that I have, as being overjoyed or happy to spend time in family court. And I think one advantage or one benefit that my real boots on the ground interaction with litigants and folks outside who are resolving their disputes outside the courtroom is that I can make our courtroom and our justice system more accessible to those who enter our doors. And I can do that through how litigants and attorneys are treated in the courtroom and how they're listened to and how evenly the law would be applied.
Great answer. And Joe, same answer to you. Why is family court so important and why did you decide to run for it?
Sure. To me, family court was where I started, and I've tried other areas of the law. I've been a commercial litigator. I've handled real estate transactions. I've handled divorces. I still handle divorces. I've handled all kinds of issues all over the board. In addition to having my own private practice, I am also an attorney up at Syracuse University for their legal. We provide legal services to students. So I see students all the time, provide them with legal services here as well. I decided to go into family law in the very beginning, and it's a passion that I've had for the 20 plus years because I feel like it makes the most impact on individuals. What is the most important thing to most people? Their families, right? And it is an emotional court. It is a stressful court. People are upset. People are not at their best when they get there. However, it is important to understand that, to be patient, to calmly handle things, and try to identify the issues and provide the tools for them to not only get through court, but to not come back, for their lives to be better for having been in court and the issues that they're facing, having been addressed, and they can move on and do so with their family. Why family court? Because we're shaping families in family court. How do we want our families to be shaped? Well, I'm from here. I want to make a positive impact on the families in Onondaga County. I want people to want to stay in Onondaga County. I want when people go away to come back and raise families here like I did. It is important and it is a passion for me. What is family court? It's a place where people go when they can't find the answer at home, when they can't find the answer between spouses, boyfriends, girlfriends, family members. That's where they go to resolve those disputes for those intimate problems with children, with spouses, on a very personal basis. And as Diane said, this is a private court. Inherently, it's not something that you'll see in the newspaper. It's something that's kept private for a reason. You're dealing with families. And so in my opinion, it is the most important job I've had, dealing with family court. And my experiences are something that I feel I can do good for the citizens of Onondaga County. I can bring those experiences to the bench and apply them in such a way to benefit people and to help improve their lives. And so that when they leave court, they can leave court in a positive way and hopefully leave court resolving their issues where everyone's happy with the results, and they can move on with their lives beyond family court. And they don't have to be there every year and come back all the time. That's my hope. That's my goal. And that's why I chose family court, and that's why I chose to run at this point.
So you both chose to run, but as I alluded to earlier, you kind of got into this late because of the late nature of the retiring justices that retired out of cycle, which put these two positions up on this year's ballot for a full term. And we really kind of found out about that in July, and you were nominated by the Democratic Committee shortly thereafter. But, it is also a countywide race. This is not a small race. So to get in, a lot of times people are planning these runs, or they're at least thinking about it in January, that kind of stuff. So what was your thought process as you were thinking about running for these positions, as you learned that these positions might open up? And what's it like to be running in a countywide race right now? Joe, we'll start with you on this one.
Well, I've never experienced a countywide race for anything I've done, although I am an elected official right now. I've never done anything countywide. So this was a great feat. And it's a challenging process. It's a very challenging process to do in 3 months' time. And it's constantly going. It's constantly going to events. It is enjoyable, though. I have to say that going out and meeting community members, talking to people, talking about what their concerns are for the community, what their concerns are for family court, I think it's something positive. And although being a judge is nonpartisan, I believe it's important to talk to the community and find out what they think is important, find out what they think the problems are. And when I'm sitting as a judge, whether it's a Village of East Syracuse judge or as a family court judge, I hope to consider what they have talked about, what they feel is important, and put that information into play as much as I can.
And Diane, same question to you. What was it like to get into the race so late, and how did you find out about it? And what's it like now to be in it and running a countywide race?
So, like Joe, this is the first countywide race I've ever run. It's actually the first elected office that I've ever attempted to hold. Um, I have to say the process has been a little bit intimidating, and it's been a test of my organizational skills. However, I'm finding that I absolutely love it for a lot of the reasons that Joe has already stated. I get to get out there in our community. I get to hear people's thoughts. While I can't respond to them, I'm certainly listening, certainly hearing, certainly internalizing. I'm getting to learn about even more amazing organizations that are in our community that I have not been able to familiarize myself with. And even though we didn't get to it before, I have had extensive volunteer service with some community organizations, but I'm meeting many more now. And I'm, again, just really enjoying getting out there. And I'm hoping that the, fruits of all the, interactions I'm making and people I'm getting to know will be successful in November 7th.
Yeah, it's so hard to run countywide, and it's harder even still to get in so late. And so I want to thank you both for putting your name forward, because it's hard also just to put your name forward and run for office. I think people think that it's that it's easy to do these things, and it's not. It's very hard. And but hopefully November comes around and you're successful and you're both on the bench. And we have a very good history of electing Democrats countywide to these family court positions and to judicial positions. So if that happens, what do you can't get into issues. We talked about that earlier, but what are some of the areas of focus that you want to have at family court? What are you hoping to do if you are elected and the public puts you in? What are some of the things that you're going to focus on while you're there? Diane, we'll start with you.
So for me, access to justice is very important. And while I don't know that I can control that outside of the courtroom doors, I can certainly do the best I can do to control that inside the courtroom doors. And that goes, in my mind, to not only ensuring that litigants are heard equally, either on their own as pro se or through their attorneys, or speaking up with permission from their attorneys when they're in my courtroom, to ensuring the best that I can that staff that I work with are trained in inclusivity, to, of course, applying the law fairly, to ensuring that everyone who comes before me is heard. I think that access to justice not only results in better justice for litigants, but it also reinforces the faith of our local community in our justice system, in our judiciary, and in the attorneys who are serving before our courts and serving their clients. I would hope to be able, if I can, to do an even better job to accommodate folks who might struggle in certain ways. For example, perhaps with a handicap, perhaps with age, perhaps with linguistic issues, such that whatever their challenges might be, that they come to my courtroom in, they will not feel that those challenges are an impediment to them obtaining justice in my court.
And Judge Zavaglia, it's your turn for this question. If you're lucky enough that you're moving from East Syracuse downtown to the Justice Center, what are you hoping to focus on when you're sitting on the bench?
Yes.
in family court.
So if I should happen to find myself in the Onondaga County Courthouse, sitting as a family court judge, I should hope that I take my experiences and apply them. I feel that in the village of East Syracuse, I give everyone a fair chance. I listen to people. I try to identify if there are problems when litigants come up to me and maybe their attorney hasn't honed in on the problem. I try to talk to them about some personal issues, not about the case in which they're before me on, but when I'm doing this, I'm trying to assess whether or not they're struggling with anything at home, whether or not they're struggling with any mental health, any substance abuse issues, any domestic relations issues, something that maybe might hone the attorney or identify those issues to the attorney and help them with coming to a resolution and hopefully resolving the case in a positive way in which they can walk away from the experience and it would be, again, a positive experience for them, such as when a young individual is before me and I find out that they do not have a high school degree, I oftentimes suggest that in the event that they would be willing to get a GED, that might be something that I would consider as favorable if the DA's office would agree to that. So, you know, if they're before me because of a crime, they could walk away with a GED and have a positive experience leaving my court instead of having a negative experience, and something that they could use to build on. That's an example, but it is an example of something that I do. I think I can take those tools that I've learned and honed from being a sitting Village of East Syracuse judge and apply them in family court. I'm going to listen to everyone. I'm going to try to hone in on what issues are, what they're experiencing at home. I'm not going to just run them through the court and get on to the next case because my calendar is large. I'm going to do what needs to be done for each individual.
So we're getting towards the end of the time in our podcast that, you know, I think people start to, you know, it's been a great podcast so far, but people start to tune out. So I like to wrap these up around a half hour, but I always have my favorite question, which is, what haven't we talked about? So, you know, this is your floor. You can talk about yourself, your campaign, your dog, whatever you want to talk about. But this will be our closing question. So Judge Zavaglia will end with you. What haven't we talked about that you want the voters of Onondaga County to know?
So far in this election process, I have been endorsed by the veterans. I am also rated highly qualified by the CNY Women's Bar Association. I feel as though I'm very qualified because I have held every position in family court. I've stood in every position you could stand in as a lawyer in family court. To me, that's important because I know where each party is coming from. I know where the prosecutor is coming from if they're in front of me from the county attorney's office. I know what their pressures are when they go back to their office and they're dealing with the client, the Department of Social Services. I know what their pressures are when they go back to the office and they're dealing with their client, the probation department. I know what their pressures are when they're dealing with child support in the support collection process. And the same goes for defense attorneys. I know what they're dealing with when they're talking with their clients and they have pressures for a certain position in court. as well as the attorney for the child. I know because I've been there. I've been in every one of those positions, and I understand where people are coming from. I think it makes me a good judge to be in those positions and to be able to relate to those positions while I'm up at the bench, as opposed to someone who has not had those experiences and hasn't been practicing for a long time. Certainly, both Diane and I are very experienced in family court, and we're not dealing with a panel of people that has a lack of experience. It's a pleasure to be on the ticket with Diane, and that's pretty much it. I think that we're in a good spot, and I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to have the endorsement, and it's a pleasure to be one of the Democratic nominees. And I hope everyone keeps me in mind when they vote on November 7th.
Diane, floor is yours now. What haven't we talked about?
So like Joe, I went through the Central New York Women's Bar Association judicial screening process, and I received a status of recommended, which I was absolutely thrilled to receive because I have never held a judicial position before. So I couldn't be more grateful, and I'm very thankful for that opportunity. I think one significant piece of my connection to this community that we didn't really discuss was my volunteer efforts. And I think for me as a candidate, that might be more important than, say, for someone who was born and raised here, because I was not. But through my thousands of hours over the years of volunteering for non-traditional informal learning youth-based programs targeting Central New York youth and families, all of which these programs were designed with inclusivity at the forefront for underprivileged youth, not only from the inner city, but from rural areas. I think that shows, hopefully, to the voters and to families that I'm committed to this community, not only in my professional practice, but in my personal time. I've held various leadership positions in those areas, such as volunteer and logistics coordinator, special awards manager. I've emceed. Actually, many people in the community have probably seen me emceeing these events for children over the years. And I've been very lucky to receive several awards for my volunteer work over the years, such as the Presidential Gold Award for Volunteering, the Distinguished Volunteer Award, and the Central New York Business Journal's 40 Under 40 Award, among others. On the event days for the events that I volunteer for, I often have functioned as essentially the general manager for the day. I've also devoted quite a bit of time to pro bono legal work in our community through the Volunteer Lawyers Program Family Law Clinic, as well as doing occasional, not a lot, of pro bono work representing litigants in matrimonial parts. So in sum, I'd like to say that essentially both my volunteer life and my professional legal life have been boots on the ground in nearly every way for Central New York youth and families. I feel like both through my volunteer philanthropic work as well as through my litigation work that I've had a unique ability to connect not only with litigants, but individuals and the human beings who would be appearing before me if I'm fortunate enough to earn a seat as a family court judge. And essentially, I would never forget, and I think Joe was sort of getting to this point, and I'll just be a little bit more blunt. Again, even if I have the honor to become a family court judge, I'll never forget where I came from.
Well, Joe, Diane, thank you so much for coming on Zoom and Czarny, taking time out of this busy campaign schedule to tell the voters why you're running and who you are. I think that's very important and commendable. And again, I want to thank you for running at all, because it is very hard to run for office and putting yourself out there. And all you want to do is serve our community and serve some of the most needy people in our community as family court judge. And that's commendable and honorable. And I want to thank you again. In the show notes, I'm going to put their Facebook pages and where you can get in contact with them. You can go and find out more about them on there, as well as events that they're going to be at. I know they're going to be at every event that they can be at over the next less than 60 days now to the general election. But Joe, Diane, thank you so much again for coming on Zoom and Czarny.
Dustin,
Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you. And your office has been a pleasure to deal with. I'm so happy for all the help your office has given us as candidates. You know, I'm always welcomed with open arms when I'm there, and you've been right on top of things, and I couldn't ask for more. I appreciate it.
Likewise.
And that was my interview with Diane Darwish Plumely and Joseph Zavaglia, two incredible Democrats running for family court. Check out the show notes to see how you can get involved with them and support their campaigns. Coming up this weekend on the Weekly Wonk, I'll be doing County Legislative District 6. It's my first look into the county ledge districts this fall. And we're starting with the lowest numbered one that is actually in competition this fall. So County Ledge District 6 is going on. And that's my weekly walk, although right now I still have the town of Tully up at DustinCzarny.com. No commissioner in a car next week. I hope to be doing a Czarny seminar on how to register to vote for the general election. And then my Zoom with Czarny next week, if all goes as planned, will be the town of Geddes Democrats. They're running a slate out in the town of Geddes, and we'll be talking to them. And they'll be my Zoom and Czarny guest next week. Remember, next week I will be away. I'll be in LA Tuesday through Friday for the Partnership for Large Election Jurisdictions Conference. I'm really looking forward to that, representing Onondaga County and New York in this newly formed conference. There's so much to learn, and I'm really excited. I'm not going on taxpayer dollars. This is something that they fund. It's a nonprofit organization, and I'm going out there to learn from some of the top election officials in the country. We'll also be touring the LA Orange County elections jurisdiction office. So I'm really looking forward to that. So I'll be doing Reels and maybe on TikTok. I kind of started looking at the TikTok, but we'll see how that goes. I'll be doing Reels and TikToks from there all week. So enjoy and have a good weekend. Bye-bye.